This isn't just any diminishing returns. This is Valentine's diminishing returns.
What's sexy? What's a sexy voice?
Just speak the same, but get more breathy. Alan, add some breath to your voice.
Why have you gone effeminate with that? Can you not do a masculine, breathy voice?
Nah.
No, I don't know how. Can you show me how such a thing would be doable?
Hello! Welcome to Valentine's Day special!
I realise that this is sort of how Mark Gatiss speaks, isn't it?
Happy, happy Valentine's, 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 happy, happy Valentine's. It's a day for loving.
That's right. It is currently 16 days before Valentine's Day as we record. So obviously it's very sexy in the studio. It is our Valentine's special, and in a grand tradition of this podcast, we've done a Valentine's special every year, or what we like to call a sexy special. It's not about love, it's about sex. And that's why we covered the 50 Shades of Grey films over the last few years. We did one a year.
But the thing about a trilogy is there's only 3 of them.
Ménage à trois of films.
Yeah.
But the basic idea was that the films had so little merit and so little to talk about once you've slagged them off that we just talked about sex instead. This year we did something different. We put it up to our Patreon supporters. We gave them a vote on what they wanted to do, what sexy film they wanted to do. They kind of missed the point. They picked a good film.
Did they, though?
But, controversial spoiler alert. So, yes, our Patreons chose Boogie Nights, the sort of career maker of Paul Thomas Anderson. And
keep on dancing, keep on dancing.
What were other options that were on the table? What got the second most votes? Do you know?
Well, I'll tell you, joint third in the vote was Orgasmo, which would have been fun. Although that's also arguably a good film. Tied with Showgirls, which I think is a sort of trash we probably should be doing. I've never seen it. Tied with Nymphomaniac Volume 1, which I've never seen. I can't comment, but I do think it's quite explicit. Second place was Debbie Does Dallas, which I think we should have done, really. A porn film. We haven't done an actual porn film yet.
Mm-hmm.
If you're interested in casting your vote on episodes that we cover, head over to patreon.com/dimreturns, because we are currently taking votes for our Easter special, our sort of religious themed film. It is legitimately neck and neck at the minute between God's Not Dead 3 and Life of Brian, which is a similar situation. Ooh. It's a question of, do we do something shit and laugh about it, or something like an actual classic and talk about it properly. So have your say at patreon.com/dimreturns.
All right, so let's deal with our film choice. This is the first time we've had a full proper episode dedicated to a Paul Thomas Anderson film. We have dealt with Phantom Thread in a previous Oscars special.
Yes, I would say that Boogie Nights is probably Paul Thomas Anderson's most mainstream accessible film. You could probably make an argument for Magnolia, but I think
as being accessible,
yeah, to the mainstream. Do you not think?
No.
Out of all of his films, what would you go with? There Will Be Blood. You're having a laugh. Punch Drunk Love I've not seen, to be fair. Maybe that's the one with Adam Sandler.
Yeah. It's one. Do you know what I was thinking this while I was watching the film? Obviously, I've seen most of Paul Thomas Anderson's films, and I'm not quite sure how I feel about it. But I think what occurred to me while I was watching this was I've never really looked at them as a whole, like as a career, as a kind of piece of work, and sort of what that tells you about the person behind them. I think it'd be very interesting to do all his films.
I think In broad strokes, I think that my opinion of him is he's not the master auteur that he's made out to be. I don't think he has nearly the perfect grasp on what he's doing that he's often made out to have. I think a lot of his films are incredibly well made, if perhaps dull, but I think a lot of them are actually just quite meandering and nonsensical.
I think my major problem, and again, this is something I've kind of been thinking about after watching the film, I think I find it all a little bit superficial. Like there's not quite enough depth to it. It is quite it's deliberately quite meandering and experiential. It's all usually ensemble stuff. So you're not really supposed to really get down and dirty with this character. It's just sort of like, here's things that are happening. And I get that as a style. I'm okay with that. And I actually quite like that sort of stuff sometimes. But I think it needs to be saying something deeper, even if the characters aren't doing anything specific.
I think you're right. I think that's why I come close to being completely and utterly in love with his films and never quite get there.
Yeah.
Like The Master was so on the brink of being something I'd be completely in love with, but just not quite. There Will Be Blood has scenes in it that are up there with my favourite scenes in film history, but as an overall film, maybe not so much. I mean, I'll say it now. I think Boogie Nights is by far and away my favourite of his films.
Mm-hmm. But that's what I think. I think he does have quite a style. I think he is quite an auteur feel to it. When you watch his film, you know it's a Paul Thomas Anderson film. You know? I mean, definitely for me, Paul Thomas Anderson. It's films that I don't revisit. It occurred to me when I was watching Boogie Nights. I haven't seen this film for. I mean, I don't know. It must be 10 years at least. I've only ever seen There Will Be Blood once. I saw Magnolia about 15 years ago and have never revisited it.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I was kind of saying I'd like to go through his films and watch them all again and sort of get a good grasp on what he is.
Well, I'm very similar, actually. Boogie Nights was a film that I first watched when I was sort of getting into film as a teenager, and I think it was the presence of a few porn stars, real life porn stars, that clued me off to the fact that it existed. But anyway, it's a film that I watched once a long time ago and haven't revisited, even though I had it in my head as, you must revisit this film because it's probably going to be a hell of a lot better on a rewatch now that you're more aware of film and how it works and all that. And I do this a lot where I kind of assume that I'll appreciate something that I maybe didn't appreciate to the fullest degree when I was younger. And then almost inevitably when I go back to it, it's like, oh no, I was pretty spot on. Maybe I couldn't articulate the reasons why I felt that way, but I still feel the same way. I mean, having said that, I do like Boogie Nights.
Yeah, I think we're being a little bit negative, aren't we?
Yeah.
I think Calvin brought that on to us.
Okay. Well, I suppose we'll get into it as we talk more about the film. I came to it having... I knew that Mark Wahlberg and Burt Reynolds were in it, and Mark Wahlberg was a porn star with a big dick, and I'd seen a clip of it before. It's the clip that's sort of like halfway through the film where Burt Reynolds gets Mark Wahlberg to get his dick out for this other producer to prove how big it is. That's all I knew about the film, so I didn't watch a trailer or anything like that, so I had no idea where this was going to go.
I saw some clips of Heather Graham and Julianne Moore before I watched the film as well. Taken out of context.
Yeah.
There isn't much of a story, really. It's kind of like a rise and fall and back to the beginning again sort of story about a group of people making pornographic films in California in the late 70s, early 1980s.
It's annoying because it really feels like it has a solid plot trajectory in mind for the first 2/3.
Yeah.
And then it's somewhere in that last act you kind of think, oh no, they're just a series of events, one after the other, that don't really connect to anything.
Oh, I was stunned when it ended. Like, we'll get to it, I suppose, but it just ends, and I was quite dumbfounded.
The obvious comparison is Robert Altman, who makes kind of these big ensemble films where nothing particularly happens, but you just get dropped into this world and you experience it. That comparison was, I was just reading about Paul Thomas Anderson a little bit earlier, and apparently when they were making A Prairie Home Companion, which was Robert Altman's last film, Paul Thomas Anderson was the backup director in case Robert Altman died, because Robert Altman was so old, and he did die before the film was released.
Oh.
But for insurance purposes, they had to have a backup director. So I mean, he's the obvious choice. But yeah, Altman is an obvious comparison there, and I've never been convinced by Robert Altman either, to be honest with you. But yeah, the problem with this particular example is that it teases a storyline. It's it feels like you are going to have a storyline, and then it never quite delivers. And there's all these ensemble elements, all these surrounding characters. The stories they go through don't directly add anything, and certainly you can argue that it adds to the whole mood and feel and everything. But is that enough? I mean, I think it appeals to a certain type of viewer, doesn't it? Who like kind of perhaps your more arty, metaphorical kind of feeling films, which I don't think I'd fall into, frankly.
Well, I mean, I like the feel of the film. I like the illusion of plot, I guess. It's similar to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, to pluck out a contemporary, obvious example. But it kind of is just a series of short films.
Yeah, I didn't like
loosely connected.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood either. So there.
Yeah, and it's just annoying because on their own, I kind of love all of them. I kind of love all the scenes and what they're doing, but I just want them to be assembled into a bigger whole, a greater whole than they are.
I can give you a good sort of comparison piece here of Trainspotting. I don't know if you've ever read the book, but it's essentially a collection of short stories that aren't really connected. They kind of involve the same characters because it all sort of takes part in the same world. And there is some crossover between them, but essentially it's all just short stories. And then when they came to adapt it into a film, they really pulled out this one central character, Renton, played by Ewan McGregor, and gave him a linear narrative through it. But then you still have, a side story about Begbie beating someone up in a pub, which is one of the chapters. There's a side story about Spud shit in the bed, which I think is actually Renton's character in the book. But it's like they have that as a side character. It's not really relevant, but it has enough of a linear narrative, and these side stories add enough that it works.
Yeah,
I'm using that as an example because that's a film that I really like. And here, and I just want to say I did like this film because I'm sounding negative. You've got these side stories of, for example, Don Cheadle's story, which doesn't really and all these separate elements, like he can't get a loan because of his past, and then he just goes to a donut shop and suddenly it's like, oh, here's some money, and like this kind of weird Deus Ex Machina kind of thing.
But that's like the opening, 20 minutes of a film, that's like the start of an early Quentin Tarantino film. But then you have, an hour of Don Cheadle talking about movies and looking at what's her name's feet, and it play out in an obvious way. And it's annoying, isn't it?
Yeah, and then, the whole William H. Macy storyline, which does give us a really definite,
I do love that.
Definite center point where we kind of go like everything was great and now everything's shit. There's like a very distinct moment, which I think
I love his
a bit on the nose,
subplot, if you can call it a subplot, because it really is just a 3-act joke. It's like set up, body, punchline.
But it's not even that. It's just punchline, because his reaction, it's not the thing that's happening exactly the same. Is just for one day he snaps, and there's no
rule of 3,
and we have no idea anything about his character that makes us think, oh, why today has he snapped?
But I love that because that is a beginning, middle, and end. That is a storyline. His character has an arc, a rise, and a fall, and it's.
I don't know if he has a rise. I think that might be the problem. Hey. he walks in on her having sex with some guy, and she is like a real porn star as well, the lady playing his wife.
Yes, Nina Hartley.
He walks in at home, she's having sex with someone, close the door, leave me alone. Kind of does the same thing again when she's out in a parking lot somewhere, someone's driveway, and then the third time he just kills her. I don't know if that's much of a arc. It's an escalation.
But he escalates.
It's a plot though. It's a beginning, middle, and end.
Well, it isn't.
It is. That's as much storyline as you get in Joker, and that's been nominated for 11 Academy Awards.
But the problem with that is, like, if it was like he knows she's cheating on him and he can kind of put it to the back of his mind, but then she does it in front of everyone and everyone knows and he's humiliated, maybe that would be the trigger point. But there's no difference to what she's doing than what she's done before, so why now is he... And it's not even like it's obvious that he's drunk, particularly, like he's out of control because it's New Year's and he's been drinking or something. I don't know. It just
because he gave her a 3-strike rule, didn't he? He was like, "Look, if you do that 2 more times, I'm going to be really mad."
Yeah, but that's one example. And I read some things.
Nina Hartley, right?
Yeah,
she's still working now. His wife. And she was sort of in MILF territory back when she made this. Yeah. Yeah, good on her. Man. She's a trooper.
We've talked already a little bit about William H. Macy. He's very much a supporting character. If there is a lead, and I think he is the lead here, it's Mark Wahlberg. Boy-faced Mark Wahlberg, who is spotted by Burt Reynolds in a bar where he's working, and I just want to talk about that opening scene. It's very Goodfellas. It's all one take. It's swooping around a club. We're meeting all these different characters, and then it kind of settles down, and Burt Reynolds is making eyes at Mark Wahlberg across the room, and it's close-ups, and they're both looking at each other, and Burt Reynolds doing his sort of come hither eyes. And I was watching it with my partner at the time, and he started counting down, like, because they kept going back and forth, and he was like, 3, 2, 1, because we were just like expecting, the next cut is going to be them in bed together or making out behind them. It was just so like that was just what was being telegraphed. And then Burt Reynolds kind of goes in and checks out Mark Wahlberg. He's heard he's got a big penis and all that kind of stuff.
Well, it's a bit odd, isn't it? Like I was.
Well, this is what I wanted to ask. Like, because this is Burt Reynolds, he's not going to accept playing a gay man. So I'm wondering if they're doing some kind of like Charlton Heston in Ben-Hur type of, Bert, just look longingly at this point and we'll just, we'll do it in editing, that's fine.
It must be noted that Burt Reynolds is this kind of Hugh Hefner-esque kind of porn baron. Not Hugh Hefner, actually. He doesn't quite come across like that, but he is kind of in the world of porn, and we never see him have sex or show any real interest in women at all. Other than as filming them.
And I don't know, I know there's a real, very blatant homoerotic energy coming off of that character when he's, dealing with Marky Mark, but...
Well, that's I wondered if that was intentional. Do either of you guys know? I couldn't find anything in my research that indicated such, but it's certainly there in those first few scenes.
I only really got it in that first scene, really. And it is because there's kind of this ambiguity where you don't know the character yet. And
that's exactly
he wanders over and it's like, what, has he just got like a sixth sense that this guy's got a big cock? Like he can sniff it out? Like he's just like, I've noticed you around.
But that's it. I never took it as a gay thing so much as this guy knows his industry. He can tell this guy's going to be good at having sex on camera. This is what his film needs. I know that they do very much play it with that homoerotic energy up front, but I think that is an intentional ambiguity where you're not quite sure what the character is yet.
It's a little bit of a fake.
Marky Mark doesn't. Marky Mark doesn't know if this is like an old man coming onto him or not, and
that's where I thought it was going until I remembered that this is Burt Reynolds and he probably would not ever agree to do such things. And he hated being in this film, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but was that the homosexual undertones, or was it?
No. He just hated
it was immoral.
It was the sexual overtones.
He just never really understood like what it was really about, and when he saw the final film, he like apparently fired his agent. And I think like you mentioned, Showgirls was an option in the poll for this. That was a reason why a lot of people were very hesitant to sign on to this, because that was a drama film about a seedy industry, and it really flopped and ruined some careers, and people were nervous about that kind of thing happening here.
And it's worth noting as well, Paul Thomas Anderson was born in 1970. I mean, he was 27 when this film came out. Like, he was young and, you know, relatively untested. He had done one sort of low-budget feature film before, which had done well enough, obviously. If you're Burt Reynolds and this fucking young kid's coming round like, I want to make you play a porn baron, you're like, yeah, would you trust him?
Yeah, but it also was the peak of that Quentin Tarantino young auteur kind of everyone's working with the hot new thing in Hollywood kind of time. And
well, and it definitely fell into that category, really. But yeah, I can see why Burt Reynolds would be hesitant. Although I was reading stuff how basically the two of them did not get on, and so there was a bit of friction on set. And there was something Burt Reynolds wrote basically saying like, you know, he's just this young kid, and every time, oh wow, that was amazing, didn't that look great? And I'm like, here's a list of films where they've done something similar. You're not special or original, which is a bit like that big first opening shot, and it's like it's just Goodfellas, mate. But it definitely sounds like, you know, it's an enthusiastic young director doing something, you know, visually interesting, and Burt Reynolds is just like a grumpy old man telling him to shut up.
Yeah. And ironically, the high point critically of his career, perhaps, is only Academy Award nomination. And Mark Wahlberg's, obviously, his whole character thing is that he's a plucky young guy who doesn't really have much in the way of ambition, but he has a massive penis, and when he's scouted, he uses that to gain fame and fortune before losing it, and then sort of coming back to where he originally was. And he's got a terrible mother. Like, she's horrible. That's Rachel's boss from Friends, I noticed.
Yeah.
It is a film where literally you see everyone is a someone.
Yeah. I mean, that's
a terrible dad as well. For just
Yeah.
awkwardly sitting by, pulling a sad face, but like doing nothing about it.
He's been beaten down over the years, downtrodden. Yeah, there's that again is sort of like it's a whistle-stop tour of this guy's life, isn't it? It's sort of like, oh, look, here's his shitty home life. That's why he's happy to walk away from it and come into this other life. I read something Paul Thomas Anderson saying that the film was about family and kind of finding your family, and even in this kind of in this world where you wouldn't expect people to have emotional closeness, they do, and it's just not what you would traditionally expect. And so obviously the mirror of that is a loving family unit, which is actually quite abusive and horrible. But yeah, is that it? Again, that feels like that's sort of step one, and then you do something more with it.
Because this is 2.5 hours as well. Just cut any one or two of these subplots, and it would just be so much more streamlined.
I must say, I don't feel the running time with this one the way I do with most of Paul Thomas Anderson's films. I think most of his films are a bit of a slog, and you do really know that time is passing. Whereas with this one, you know, in the last act, I did sort of think, oh, I guess it has been going on a bit now, but it was quite a breezy watch for me.
Yeah, every scene is dynamic and drives forward. So that's not the problem. But there are a few bits and pieces. Like there's one character it's a female, and she's another one of the sort of regular porno stars there. And then she marries this guy, and we see her wedding, and it's like, what the fuck is this? Like, and then we don't even get any more of her character or anything.
Well, do you know about the deleted scene involving that character?
Oh, she been
obviously.
Obviously not. But
well, it turns out. I thought that's what you might have been leading to, because her character, her husband ended up sort of being abusive towards her. And so that was her, because everyone does kind of have a low point moment, and she doesn't. She just sort of gets married and then is off out of the film, I think. I don't know. She comes back.
But that's exactly. If you decide to cut that out, cut the other bits of her out. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like that wedding scene is not necessary. The scene before where she meets him isn't necessary.
Yeah. I guess you were just talking about the whole surrogate family thing, and we haven't talked about Julianne Moore's character yet, because her relationship with Mark Wahlberg, they both kind of fulfill some kind of void for each other, and I don't mean... that was seriously no innuendo intended with that statement, but Mark Wahlberg obviously has a very difficult relationship with his mother. Julianne Moore's character, we see her trying to get on the phone to her son, and there's a custody battle between her and her ex-husband, and together they sort of come together as some kind of strange mother-son partnership, but they still have sex with each other on and off the set, actually. A bit of a love... It's not quite a love triangle. Burt Reynolds never seems too bothered. Julianne Moore is his wife, isn't she?
I don't know. I didn't get that specifically.
I kind of assumed that she was, but then as the film went on, I was like, oh, maybe she isn't. So I don't actually know.
I don't think so. I think she
I
fills
kind
that
of-
role in his life, it seems, and she seems to live there with him. And she's definitely the...
I think by the end of it, I thought she wasn't, actually, so yeah.
I don't think it's ever mentioned specifically, but she's definitely the maternal figure to the group, whereas he is the paternal figure. So, I mean, yeah, obviously it fills that.
I could have sworn that at some point he says, "Oh, and this is my wife." He introduces her as such, or maybe I'm just imagining something.
I used to really fancy Julianne Moore.
I don't think that's a controversial statement, is it?
No. I mean, I'm not saying I don't anymore, but I think she's probably just about too old now. Like Michelle Pfeiffer when we spoke about this on Ant-Man.
Is she 58, 59 now?
60,
Yeah.
I think. I mean, I don't know what she looks like nowadays. I'm just assuming she's probably a bit old now. I don't know.
Well, this was one of the films that kind of really made Julianne Moore a big name. She did Jurassic Park 2 the same year as this, and
oh, really? That was that same
Psycho
year?
the year after, and Big Lebowski is the year after, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, this and she
I'm
was
also a
already,
big fan of her acting. I should say she's not just a pretty face.
But she was well into her 30s by the time she did this, and she sort of broke through into the mainstream. A bit of a late bloomer in that sense. The cast in this is extraordinary. There's a lot of people.
Oh God,
a lot of
everyone
people
is outstanding.
Kind of at early points in their career, relatively speaking, and Burt Reynolds.
Your favourite soul is in here as well, John C. Reilly.
Mark Wahlberg. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Heather Graham's another favourite. You know, an early developmental celebrity crush of sorts. That one, but yeah, John C. Reilly is probably my favourite working actor out of everyone. So yeah, no exaggeration there. I love him, and he's great in this.
He's great in this. Yeah,
he's not doing any massively heavy lifting, but he's just a joy to watch, have fun.
But I think the chemistry between him and Wahlberg is really important, actually, and I think it's not just simply there in the script. You know, you need to be able to bring that to life, and I think they both have the right energy that does that, and they're obviously bouncing off each other. But it really brings and if we are talking about Dirk Diggler as our central character, the one we're kind of trying to resonate with. It really brings him to life. It makes there's such a simplicity between them. Like they're both kind of quite simple, but also like the way they interact with each other, it's quite childish. It's like when they first meet, it's like two 10-year-old boys meeting for the first time, and they're like trying to outmatch each other and stuff. It's kind of sweet, and that's what makes it work, I think. And then you sort of see them fall into this depravity, but they're always kind of stick together. And then quite near the end, when they're running away from Alfred Molina, they get separated, just sort of in the melee of what happens. And I don't think they ever come back together until like the happy ending when they're all working together again. So it is kind of like that's Mark Wahlberg's lowest point, is when he loses John C. Reilly. I think that's kind of the ultimate low point, isn't it?
Yeah. Also, like, does John C. Reilly just not age? I mean, he's one of those people who's always looked about mid-50s.
40?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is significantly
Yeah.
thinner here, though. I mean, his head is massive compared to his body. I think he's had to grow his body to match the head.
I was thinking that, because last thing I saw him in was Stan and Ollie, so he's playing Oliver Hardy there, so it's quite weird watching him in some of these poolside scenes.
My favourite as well, Philip Seymour Hoffman, pops up. Obviously, a big favourite of Paul Thomas Anderson. John C. Reilly and Philip Seymour Hoffman was in Paul Thomas Anderson's first film.
But again, in Boogie Nights, he's another character with a story who, like, he's obviously gay and late 70s, that may or may not go down well. He's on the set of all these straight porn films every day, and he's clearly got a crush on Marky Mark. And there is a point where he tries to kiss him, and Marky Mark sort of... he handles it quite well, I think, for a character in the late 1970s. Just kind of like, no, that's not for me. But just that's fine. You do you.
He handles it a lot better than I think the real Marky Mark would.
Yeah.
It's not like
the real Marky Mark did, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Mark Wahlberg was an underwear model. I think he's probably been propositioned by older men many times. He probably got used to it.
It's a very sexually liberal lifestyle they're living with lots of sexually liberated people. I can imagine that homosexuality was quite tolerated even in the 70s amongst those guys, particularly as Marky Mark himself has been doing stuff for money before.
Our introduction to his character is like, I'll let you watch me have a wank for $10.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how much that was in 1977. I don't know what you could get for $10 in 1977, but seems like a low rate.
You reckon? What, to let someone watch you have a wank?
To completion. You can only do that so many times.
70, I mean, what's that? That's about 20, 40... That's like $100 today money.
Is it?
Today.
That's a hell. Is that inflation that much?
I'm going to look it up.
I didn't think there was much of a... to say it's $5 to look at it, 10 to watch him jack off. That seems like that should be more, perhaps, like $20 for that, because that requires far more effort than just getting it out of his pants.
What if I wank it off? Is that cheaper because I'm doing the work?
But did he say he'd do it to completion, or...
He does because... Yeah, he does because that's what Burt Reynolds is impressed with. He says, like, how many times have you done that already tonight? It's twice. And he says, like, could you do it again?
Oh, well,
there
you go. There you go. Because he's like, I'll go again. That's why he doesn't care. That's his magic power.
That is a great bit in the film as well, after he's finished having sex with Julianne Moore's character, and then they're like, okay, well, take some time, and then we can go for take 2 later, and he's like, oh no, we can go right now. That bit.
It is great.
Not natural, is it?
I've seen it done.
What would you say is too long for sex?
I would say over... If it was over 20 minutes, it would be... this is going on for a while. And then if it was over half an hour, it might get boring.
Yeah, see, I struggle with this because mine always lasts too long. I'm not saying that in like a show-off way. I'm saying it in like a, if I can get it done in under 20 minutes, it's usually like, oh wow, that was fantastic. But usually what ends up happening is I get to about 30 minutes and then it's like, I'm getting tired now, and then you just start to lose interest in it, and then it becomes harder to actually complete because you're like, oh, this has become a chore now, and then and it sort of undoes all the goodwill earned from the first 20 minutes where it was really good.
Yeah, see, I think I get to that point immediately where I just like, oh, I can't bother. That's my problem.
Just to round off some of the supporting characters, there's a couple of guys who I really like, Philip Baker Hall and Robert Ridgely, who are two other sort of porn barons, and I could watch a whole film of those two and Burt Reynolds. I love these guys in the smart suits and everything, and Philip Baker Hall just arrives at a party with like 4 like young people, and they look kind of beaten up or like homeless or something. I don't know what's going on there, but it just plays like he just picked these up off a street or something, and he's like, I'm gonna make them stars and all this. And Robert Ridgely has some like young thing on his arm most of the scenes that he's in, and one of the girls, it's one of the first indications in the film of like, oh, maybe this life isn't all glam and and fun times, when she ODs on coke.
That was the porn actress I recognised as well.
Oh really? Oh, is she an
Really? Is that a
actual-
real person?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, I thought she looked
Which one's
so
she?
peculiar. She looked like one of those
That's
hairless
why I know.
cats, but as a
I was just saying, no wonder Alan likes that one, and I like the old woman. How many of these people were actual porn stars? Because I know three
Quite a
of
lot.
them.
Yeah, quite a lot of them. I'll tell you one who was, less obvious one. When Julianne Moore goes to her custody hearing and there's a judge there, the woman playing the judge is an old porn star, and apparently the storyline there was based on her, like her getting her custody battle for her kids.
Oh, is that Veronica Hart?
Yeah. There is, apparently Ron Jeremy was in a whole scene in the prison that got cut.
Oh really? Oh, interesting.
But he also helped Paul Thomas Anderson do research and stuff, and like when he was learning about the porn game. What about Mark Wahlberg then? This is the film that convinced him he was an actor. And
Convinced him?
Yeah, and he's made good use of that. This is definitely the film that established him as a legitimate actor. I've got to say, sort of begrudgingly, I do like Mark Wahlberg. I don't want to. And I don't think he's an amazing actor. I think he has a particular thing that he does well, and that is a kind of simpleton, but kind of charming.
Well, he does naive very well and wide-eyed sort of boyishness, and I think it is. I think you're on it right there. Like, I think he's fantastic in this film, but the role is just perfect for him. It's just he's playing exactly to type.
It's weird, isn't it? Because there's a hair's breadth between what he's doing here and what John C. Reilly does in almost everything he's in, and yet there's also like an absolute chasm between them in terms of what they're doing at the same time, and it's hard to put my finger on. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I'd say this is by far and away Marky Mark's best performance that I've seen. And bear in mind I have seen The Happening, and yeah, he's good at it. He's good in the sort of sense that he's not good, but there's charm and charisma that carries you through it. But then that's kind of how you imagine that character would be. So it plays as realistic anyway. It's a weird mix of things, but it works, and he's good.
Yeah, I think it works perfectly. But I think that's what I mean. I think Mark Wahlberg's done enough to prove that it's not just a fluke. I think he does know what he's doing. I don't know if he's got a wide range. But, he turned his hand to comedy very well. He did that very easily. And, he's ploughing his trade. And, he does loads of comedies now. But, Ted was probably the most central comedy one. Him being sort of up front and centre. But he does all that stuff about being a dad or having a dad, whatever that is. Mel Gibson's his dad, or Will Ferrell's his brother-in-law or something. I don't know.
I'm not disputing that he's been in comedies. it's whether or not he can do it.
No, I think he does very well. Have you seen Pain and Gain? It's hilarious. And he's sort of been an action star as well. He's not quite as good at that, but handles it all right, doesn't he?
Yeah. I've never liked him in anything else.
Well, this is what I mean. I sort of reluctantly like him. I don't really want to.
Actually, I guess he was fine in Ted. If he's sort of like in a suitable role, then that's fine, I suppose.
But even then, I don't think he's funny in Ted. I think he's just there for Seth MacFarlane's CGI antics to bounce off of, isn't he? He's not.
Yeah. But here he is really great. Like, there's that whole scene where he's down on his luck now and he's having to go back to sort of offering guys like, to watch him jerk off for $10 or whatever it is. And he plays that really well, where he just looks completely humiliated by the experience and just so beaten down and tired. I think he's really good there.
Yeah, that's another interesting thing that you don't. He doesn't go gay for pay. He's not a male prostitute. He'll let people watch him and sort of show off his cock and all that. There is a sort of line that he does not cross, even when he's desperate, which interestingly is not true of the person he's based on, obviously, and it's also not true of the character of Dirk Diggler that existed before this, which I watched earlier as well. So I don't know if you know about this specifically, but Paul Thomas Anderson made a mockumentary called The Dirk Diggler Story.
Yeah, I think I've seen it. I'm not entirely sure how or where or why, but I'm pretty sure I've seen it.
It's not that hard to find. I mean, frankly, the guy made it. Paul Thomas Anderson made it when he was 17, and with that in mind, it is very good. It is mockumentary style, so it's kind of simple, and it's mostly in like this one room where they're shooting a porno. And the guy who plays the Colonel in Boogie Nights is playing the Burt Reynolds character, Jack Horner.
Oh, really? Robert Ridgely? Oh,
yeah, it was a friend of Paul Thomas Anderson's dad, who was sort of in the industry. You know, he grew up in LA and all that, as people know, which is why he ended up in this one, of course. And the guy who's playing Dirk Diggler is also in Boogie Nights. He is right in the opening, one of the early scenes when Don Cheadle is trying to sell a stereo to someone, and the guy's just like, yeah, I'm not interested. That's the guy. It's a little cameo for his old mate, I guess.
Oh, interesting.
I love that scene as well. Again, utterly irrelevant. Well, it's just that whole subplot's utterly irrelevant, but
yeah,
it's really well acted, and it's probably one of the most successfully funny scenes in the film, I would say. Like the gag of that scene really plays, I think. That he's on the cusp of this sale, and then he just starts playing country and western, and yeah, it's great.
It's kind of all mockumentary style, and the interesting thing is that there is the character of Reed Rothschild, the John C. Reilly character, but in the film they are lovers. They're the two of them, they're best friends and lovers. And when he falls out with Jack Horner and falls on hard time. Oh, interestingly, he falls out with Jack Horner like in a very similar way to in Boogie Nights, sort of on set, and he's like getting too big of himself, and so they fall out. And then he goes off and makes an album, and he sings, "You Got the Touch."
Oh, really?
Like,
you got the
power! That was outstanding bad singing. Like, that was so... it's really difficult to do, like, legitimate bad acting if you're actually, like, not a bad actor. It's, like, very hard to realistically do it.
Yeah.
I think singing is the same exact thing. If you're not tone deaf, it's really hard to authentically sing badly, and... I mean, maybe that is just the limit of Marky Mark's ability, and he kind of went for it, no holds barred. But that scene is great. It's just so cringily authentic, but very funny, and yeah.
Yeah, but it's in this mockumentary. It's the same, except his singing voice is perfectly good in this. I don't know if it's actually him singing, but it's a perfectly good song. But there's even the bit where he's telling the guy, "Oh, take the bass off because it's interfering with my vocals." It doesn't play quite as much of a joke because his vocals are all right. But in that film, the idea is that the album does really well, and so he gets more money, but that means he just gets deeper into drugs. But anyway, so in that film, when he sort of hits rock bottom and he's desperate for money, he starts doing these low pay gay porn movies with Reed Rothschild in them. But I think that's just because that was the actor they had there. So, and the guy playing Reed Rothschild in that is really gay. I think so gay. But yeah, he actually, I presume the actor was gay, and this was very good acting because he just has that kind of, it comes off him much more easily, and he's also a bodybuilder. Like the two of them are really well built, so it's an interesting companion piece to Boogie Nights, and like I say, it shows some real talent there. It's not like outstanding, but yeah, considering it was made by a 17-year-old, I know what student films look like. It's pretty good. And you know, obviously he's had that idea bubbling around for a while.
I was surprised at the lack of sex in Boogie Nights. In terms, there's nudity, there's full frontal nudity, but I was surprised that there isn't much fucking really. I didn't think.
Yeah, well, I think the problem is you can't really, every time you kind of watch them doing a porn film, and it's framed up like a porn film, it's very jarring and noticeable that the porn film, despite having kind of 70s film stock aesthetic, is framed in a way that a porn film would never be framed because you can't see the dick and balls.
I have to say, I watched some 70s porn earlier because I was like, I'm going to look up John Holmes and see what this is all about. And it is pretty shittily filmed. So, the cameras weren't as maneuverable as they are these days. But yeah, obviously they go and do close-up shots and stuff. Have you ever seen John Holmes' work?
Nope.
Who?
Oh, don't you know? I thought this was
John Holmes.
John Holmes was
John Holmes.
So the character of Dirk Diggler is sort of based on John Holmes, who was a porn star in the 70s and 80s, who was famous for having a massive knob. And he also, was very famous, fell into drugs, ended up committing crimes and possibly murdered some people. And then started doing gay porn because he needed the money, and then died of AIDS. So it's kind of based on him.
I've heard of him, actually, I think, yeah.
He's famous for having a big knob. But yeah, he was a massive porn star, so to speak, in the 70s. So anyway, I looked up a bit of his work. He's got a big knob, but, I think I'm jaded by porn. I mean, I've seen some pretty big knobs in my time. Calvin?
Well, I don't know about Jon Holmes' real life one. The one that Mark Wahlberg has in the film looked fine, I think. You could see why he would have a porn career. But there's bigger.
Well, yeah, but you don't know how big it gets when it's erect.
Oh, that's true, actually, yeah. Yeah, we don't ever see it erect. But that would be an immediate NC-17 rating, presumably, so that's why we don't have that.
Yeah. A lot of it's also down to performance, though, isn't it? It's
it's what you do with it that counts.
Well, yeah, it's like, there's some porn stars I'm a big fan of who are, not particularly attractive, but it's all about their performance they turn in, and
well, this looks so subjective, but penis size is a sort of very physical, practical thing. It's not about how it looks, is it? It's about what it does.
Well, yeah, but there's a limit where it kind of it's not like bigger is better. It's like there's a sweet spot that you want to, like, if it gets too big, it starts to be a problem.
Oh yeah,
can't pump enough blood around it to get it hard. You're gonna hurt going in.
Oh yeah.
It's a whole thing, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
When it comes to, like, porn, like, for you guys, we've mentioned Ron Jeremy already and John Holmes. When these people are in porn, like, obviously in gay porn, you are attracted to both people engaging in the act, whereas straight porn, do you just have to ignore the man in it? Or how does it work for you? Can it be off-putting if it's a particularly ugly man?
Oh god, yeah. I really, yeah. You want, like, a bland man.
The worst thing is when they cut to a close-up of, like, they're showing him, like, wanking over someone's face, and then, like, they apparently, for narrative purposes, they need to show his face, like, in orgasm mode.
It.
So you got to kind of just pause for a second before it cuts back to taking the jizz.
I mean, it's not a problem. Like, you can deal with the vast majority of men that are going to be in a porn film. It's fine, but occasionally you'll watch something, and it'll be like it'll be like an 80-year-old man, and that's like, oh no, I can't deal with that. That's horrible. Or Ron Jeremy is a good example of someone where it's just incredibly like, oh no, I can't deal with that. Or if they've got like a stupid wig on or something, you encounter sometimes anything like distracting is I find it very off-putting.
But, like, when you're watching, like, a penis in a vagina, like, and that's just happen. I mean, surely you're only attracted to half of that image. So how does that work? I guess it's you're putting yourself in the place of the man like an avatar for you, or
well, when you watch porn, do you have to be into both the men, like, or is that not?
It helps.
But do you not sort of think, oh, I'm gonna check out so and so and look up their stuff, and the other person's kind of a second thought, or
not really? I suppose
it's always like so and so and so and so.
Well, I don't really look up porn stars as such.
Hot Twink loses magic card bet. It's always like specific things like that. I don't know. Well, the more niche you get, the better results you get, right?
Well, I quite agree with that. Yeah. Yeah.
Just looking at some magic card porn.
It'll be out there somewhere.
Bear is disciplined for spilling mustard on Keeper's new sofa.
Yeah, but no, I've never like searched porn statue. That's a lie. I definitely have. But it's not like my go-to thing. It's just you just go to a porn site and then right, what am I in the mood for today?
Oh god, I can't remember the last time I've done that.
Oh really?
I just go on Google now. You just Google like lessen the what's the word? Loosened up a bit, and you can just type like sex Google video search, and then it all comes popping in. You think,
you talk about being specific. That seems very vague.
Yeah.
All right, sex Nina Hartley 2019.
I would never search for that.
Nina Hartley fucker fan. That's a good one, that, because he comes inside and she's sort of like, now, you know how we always end with that shot of a guy coming on the woman? How are we supposed to get that now? And he's kind of like, oh. she gets really mad with him. It's great.
Like, there's some porn sites that are just, a lot of them do have more professional stuff, but then a lot of them do just sort of rely on just, God knows where they get them from, if it's revenge porn or whatever, but people just recording themselves on their phones, just having sex, and then it'll be like,
the last sort of 5 or 6 years where phone cameras have been really excellent. Like everyone can do it, and everyone does it now. It's just like this is the norm. I fucking love it. Like I much prefer that to the only reason I like professional stuff is when it's like really like hardcore stuff, like 4-on-1 gangbangs or something like that, because you're not going to do that at home.
I mean, it doesn't need to be professionally shot, but I think more often than not, I like a good scenario. You need a scenario.
No, I want a 40-second video. That's what I want. I watch about 300 40-second videos.
I'm the same, to be honest. Yeah.
See, I get about 3,000 tabs open and sort of skip through the videos and so on.
My computer's not fast enough to handle it.
You know, I'm sure I had a list of my favourite porn scenarios on my phone.
What do you mean by a scenario then? You want plot, or you want a setup? What is it? Like what?
Oh, here we are. I found it. I mean, it's different, isn't it? There's a lot of these. These are, I think, my favourite one ever that I've ever found, and I've only seen one of these. It's a shame there's not more of it, but it's a great scenario, this. Someone called Penny Pax, who's very good,
I'm aware
did
of her
this.
work,
Yeah. She did a film called, I believe it's called Sugar Babies.
They just coated
Sugar
her in
Babies.
sugar and then like ants rolled all over her.
Maybe it's Sugar Babies Part 2 or something like that, I don't know. But
well, you should look for Part 1 then. It sounds like it'd be up your street.
Basically, the plot is she gets annoyed that she's not got enough money or something, and her friend's got loads of money, and her friend's like, oh, I've started working as a prostitute. You should look into it. I'll give you the number of the pimp. And she's like, oh, interesting. And then she goes and she does it and makes a bit of money. And then her boyfriend finds out, and he's like, what? You slept with a man for money? I'm furious. And she's like, no, it's fine, honestly. And he's like, is it? And then what he does is he takes the money she made and he hires a prostitute. But what I've ruined the twist. He gets the money that she makes and he says, right, come on then, I love you. We're gonna have some bondage, like 50 Shades style. Come over here. And he ties her up and puts a blindfold on her and everything. No, I don't think there is a blindfold. He ties her up And he's like, there, you get out of that? And she's like, no, I can't. Oh, this is so exciting. And he's like, all right. And then he goes, come on. And then in comes the prostitute he's hired, the sex worker that he's hired with the money. And he's like, right, she's going to bang me now with the money that you made as revenge. And then Penny Pax is like crying and all her makeup's going down her face. And she's like, no, please think about our relationship. And he's like, yeah, we're banging. And then, the other woman's like, yeah, you're just a little whore, this is what you did. You did this, and they're like having sex against her.
God.
It's called cuck-quean porn, but that's a very specific version of it. So there you go. That's the best scenario I've come across.
I don't like porn where people are sort of like acting like they are in pain or like they're being forced to do something that they don't want to do.
I'm okay with that.
No, but she gets into it halfway through, Calvin.
Oh yeah, I know, but I prefer to see people sort of like happy or
really
just
in pain and really. I don't like it when they're acting it. I just want to see it.
Depends what mood they're in. Yeah,
I really need to feel. That's why I like the homemade stuff, because I really need to feel the genuine fear.
Well, I like when the makeup runs down the face because they're crying. So.
God.
I don't know what that says about me. That's good. Oh, you know what else I like? This isn't a scenario; it's just a thing. But I like when boobs get pressed up against glass, like a shower door or something.
I heard a rumor that Hattie Jakes, the actress from the Carry On films,
she expect her to come up with this conversation.
She liked to sorry. She liked to go underneath like glass tables while while someone did like press their arse cheeks against the top and did shit. Sorry.
You say you heard a rumor like this is like you heard this from a friend of a friend.
It's in Kenneth Williams' diaries.
This is a good one. Alan, you probably like this one.
Oh yeah.
Where there's two women and like one of the women like I don't know, like they drink potion or something and they magically grow a penis and then they have sex with the other woman.
I've never seen that. I do like a woman with a penis, though. I'm a very big fan of that.
That occasionally pops up on my searches.
Well, this goes back to what you were saying, Calvin, about a man and a woman. Like, I'm not particularly attracted to men, but I do like a penis. So a woman with a penis is top notch for me. I'm all right with that. Yeah.
I have a few final things to say about Boogie Nights.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just a couple of scenes, really. There is the sequence where Marky Mark gets beaten up by the homophobes. It's intercut with Burt Reynolds and Heather Graham are going around dinner. This is when Burt Reynolds' character has had to make the change from recording on film to on video, and he's not too happy about this. He feels like it's he feels like he's not making art anymore. And they basically do like, I don't know what the equivalent is, but in the gay world it's called the bait bus, where you you lure a supposedly member of the public into the vehicle and have them have sex with the porn star. I'm pretty sure more often than not they are just plants and it's not actually just some random person being picked up off the street. Yeah. But here,
I've seen some bait busts, and it's always someone who's sort of like. There was like, look, you get to have sex with this woman. They're like, oh, really? No way. I'd love to have sex with that woman. Oh, my God, your hair's amazing. Oh, my God. It's like, I'm not sure this is.
Yeah. But they're doing something like that, except whoever they get in gets to have sex with Heather Graham. And it's a guy who bullied her, I suppose, when she was at school. And it's sort of a bit of a low point moment for her as well as Burt Reynolds. But the intercutting of those scenes is just fantastic, I think. And there's some great music. It really feels like that's the low point of the film. They pretty much beat up the guy and leave him for pretty much dead.
I agree, but again with Paul Thomas Anderson, it feels just pretty on the nose. It's just like, and this is the bit where we cross-cut between these two similar themes. Get it?
Yeah, and even then, I don't really know what the point of that is. It's a nice scene on its own, but it kind of again just feels like it's searching for a plot that isn't
because
there.
Burt Reynolds has no character arc. Like, it's not like he learns anything or changes. He just gets a bit older, and he's out of date with the industry, changes a bit
Yeah.
to fit. That's it, really. It's like nothing happens,
Yeah. Yeah. Just like life.
Well, yeah, I think that's the point.
Yeah.
But people do change in life, especially someone who's like 17 and then, becomes very rich and powerful and loses it all. Like, that does change you. So just to have him at the end where he's basically the same is a bit...
There is another scene that we haven't really talked about yet, but it's the Alfred Molina scene where Marky Mark and a couple of mates go to try and they have some fake cocaine and they're trying to extort money out of this guy. I hated that scene more than I can express. I was just so frustrated and angry by the end of it. If there's something I really hate in films, it's someone who's like just coked off their tits, just like rambling on for ages, and it's just a lot of shouting and music, and there's some guy there with some like firecrackers or something, whatever it is that he's just throwing on the ground, and they're banging, and it just irritated me so much.
Well, I really like that scene, but I feel like it has no place within this film, and the point that it arrives, it's quite trying, because you can tell it has no place within the film, and it feels like a different film entirely. Again, it feels like part of the sort of Quentin Tarantino movie that I mentioned before, that it should have been about Don Cheadle running off with a load of money, and then he ends up doing some drug scam or whatever. It just... Yeah, but the scene itself I actually really enjoy, but then I'm a fan of Alfred Molina all coked up, so...
I mean, that scene is also kind of a reference to John Holmes and what happened with the Wonderland murders. Which,
right.
For anyone who doesn't know
this.
Basically, John Holmes, when he became a drug addict and he was sort of like desperate for money and all that, he basically he told some people like, oh, this guy over there has got shitloads of money or cocaine or whatever, he's in his house. They go and rob them, and then this guy finds John Holmes is like, I know you're the one who told them, so I'm going to kill you unless you, I've got my boys here, my heavies, you take them to where these guys are holed up, and then we'll kill them. So he took them there, they killed these 4 people, and then John Holmes was implicated in the murder. And he was tried for it and acquitted of murder or conspiracy to murder or anything like that, but he did spend some time in jail and all this. But yeah, it seemed like he was involved in these murders. So it's definitely a nod to that. It's kind of a reference to all that, the kind of that low point.
It's weird. It's weird whenever you see Alfred Molina as a young man, isn't it? Because also when he's not being like really British.
How do you feel about Don Cheadle in general as an actor? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, I like him a lot.
I kind of like him. I've never quite been convinced. He's never wowed me as an actor. It's not bad, but you know what I mean.
Every time he pops up in something, I find him quite jarring in a weird way. Like, he really takes me out of whatever I'm watching, and that's not to say I dislike him, but it's almost like he never really gels with the world that he's in. The one exception, I suppose, being Hotel Rwanda, where he is fantastic.
Do you want to wrap up our Boogie Nights discussion? Shall we rate it?
Yeah.
All right, I'll go. I think we've talked a lot about. There is a lot of stuff that we like, and it scenes exist as individual, like really nice, well acted, well written. They feel natural. It's really nicely shot. All this kind of stuff, but there's no cohesion to this, and I suppose the mission statement was just to make a slice of life kind of narrative, but that just doesn't work for me for a 2.5 hour long film. It just ends, and I was frustrated and annoyed, and that took away from a lot of the stuff that I was actually enjoying. I'm gonna give it a 5.
Ooh. See, I'm gonna give it an 8 because I really enjoy it a lot. But I think, all the negatives I've been saying, this could very well have been a 10 out of 10 for me had they
had a story.
like locked it down and edited it a bit better, and just given it a firm narrative. So it's it's quite a generous 8, but I do find it incredibly watchable. I love all the individual scenes. I think it works very nicely as a sort of slice of life. So I suppose my negativity is really just an expression of frustration at what it could have been. But I mean, I do love it. It's my favourite Paul Thomas Anderson film by a mile, as I say. Although I don't think it's his best film. If I try and be objective about it, it's definitely the one that I don't think I own any others on DVD, and I don't think I'll be buying any others on DVD. Put it that way.
I mean, I basically agree with Sol. I also gave it an 8.
Oh, wow.
Concur with most of what you said there. I do think that it felt, and I'm saying this aware that Paul Thomas Anderson was like 27 when this film was made. He was probably 25 or something when he wrote it. It feels immature in a kind of emotional sense. It feels like there's not a lot of depth there because it's written by someone who hasn't got a great deal of life experience and relationship experience and what is it like to be a father figure, all that sort of stuff. And I feel that's slightly condescending, but and it may just be a wrong assumption, but I think that might be why. And like I speak as someone who hasn't got a great deal more experience,
Well, I don't know if it feels immature so much as just very surface level and superficial. I don't know if immature is quite the word I'd use.
But I think I mean that in a sense of that he hasn't had the experience, basically. I think that's what I mean by that.
Yeah.
Like, not immature for his age, but immature as a filmmaker. And he wasn't new as a filmmaker, but in terms of filmmaking, there's so much there to enjoy visually and the acting and stuff. And I think not narratively, but in terms of what the content is, it sort of has this feeling that it's deeper than it is. And I think that is a trap for like a 20-year-old film students, that they go, oh yeah, this is amazing.
Yeah. I think mature Paul Thomas Anderson is Phantom Thread.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying that's better.
I was going to say I would take this in a heartbeat over that, but I as much as I think Phantom Thread is an immaculately well-crafted film and does what it's trying to do almost perfectly, it's just not something that appeals to me at all in the same way. But yeah, Alan.
Yes.
How old were you when you lost your virginity?
Oh, good question. Actually,
I think I was 7. It was the summer I turned 17. My birthday's in June, so I think it would have been after that, because I think it was like school holiday sort of time, probably July. So yeah, 17.
I thought you'd have a more interesting answer, to be honest. That's very stunning.
Not really.
12 to the janitor.
Yeah. No, it was with a girlfriend who we were both on the same level. Took our time. It was all very nice.
Yeah. I wonder if it's usually that uninteresting. I mean, that's the same exact story for me. Kevin?
I was just 16 with someone who I was seeing from when we were 15. So, yeah.
Same sort of thing. Yeah.
But we waited.
Why?
Is that because you were scared the police would get you?
Well, that was a factor, actually. Yeah.
Really? Do you actually think that would be an issue?
I was, yeah.
Were you slightly naive?
Yeah, very, yeah.
Alan, who are you talking to? Come on.
Yeah, no, I was very, a lot of things that I didn't realise about sex, which I think goes to some length to prove the poor quality of sex education that I received at my school. I hope it's come along a long way better since then.
What were you wrong about, apart from the gender?
I thought that if you just had unprotected sex with anyone, you would get AIDS.
That's probably what they told you, though. I mean, that is kind of...
Yeah, just don't do it.
This would have been like early 2000s, wouldn't it? Having the sex ed.
Mid 2000s, yeah.
It's a bit late for AIDS panic.
I don't think we got told about AIDS full stop in sex ed.
Really?
I remember. I mean, I remember my sex education at primary school more than the one at high school. I think high school was just a lot more biology class type stuff. whereas primary school was the one where they, showed a video of someone getting puberty and the voice went, hello, and then we all laughed, and then they took the boys and the girls in different rooms, and then they said to the boys, any questions, and one of the boys kind of looked round and went, well, how does the sperm actually get to the egg then? And then the nurse who'd come in to talk about it, because it wasn't our teacher, was like, look, we discussed this with your parents and we decided we're not actually going to tell you that bit. And it was like, well, what's the fucking point in this shit? I mean, everyone already knew, or I thought I knew, but it turned out I didn't, because I just thought anal sex was like all sex until I was probably in like shortly after this. I think we were talking about it in the playground, and this guy was like,
that's very much my attitude now, actually. Really what I've gone to.
This guy was like, you put your penis in the vagina, don't you? And I was like, oh, yeah, that would make sense.
How old were you?
But, when you go to the zoo and you see lions doing it, you just assume they're ramming it up the butt.
Do
Hmm.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't really think about vaginas, do you? You don't have one of your own to look at, and doggy style, it looks like it's going up the bum. And sometimes it is, some animals have a cloaca, and that is what they're doing.
Yeah, the only thing I remember from any sort of sex educational thing was our chemistry teacher got a condom, inflated it with water, so it was like a giant water balloon, and then rubbed like Vaseline on it because petroleum jelly, like anything oil based, will destroy the latex, and so it exploded and the water all fell out. And he was like saying, "So really? when you're lubing up, lads, don't use Vaseline.
That's quite a good
water based lubricant."
That's a good demonstration, actually. Never had that. We had Mr. Nunn and Mr. Kovalenko took all of us boys into a classroom, and we had to. We didn't. They didn't want us to put our hands up and ask questions. They asked us to write things down and put them into a hat, which they proceeded to then answer. There was a lot of
this
heavy.
In high school or
at high school, yeah.
Because I remember a kid got thrown out of our primary school one because he kept asking silly questions and being like, yeah, my dad says sex is nice. And then they were like, all right, out.
Oh, yeah, there was a lot of, like, they would pull a question out of a hat, look at it, and then sort of tut and put it aside, and then pick out another one and scrunch that up.
That's what we do with our Q&A episodes.
And then the only question I can remember that someone had written down was, what colour is cum supposed to be? And then these two men sort of like, one of them answered sort of like, well, it's clear. And then the other one was like, well, no, it's sort of milky, isn't it? And then they sort of had this little discussion between themselves about the colour of cum, and then sort of came to the conclusion.
Who the fuck is producing clear cum?
Well, yeah, well, it's a spectrum, It's there's all the shades of clear white.
It's everywhere from pure white to kind of weak icing sugar, but it's never like clear, is it?
Perhaps if you've had a vasectomy, I don't know. I'm not actually sure about that.
Not a clue.
Which bit is producing the clear and which bit is the clouding it up?
So long as it isn't red, I think that's the important thing.
Or green.
It's not, yellow is not particularly good.
Well, yeah, but that's probably just because you've eaten too much carrots or drunk too much Sunny Delight. It probably tastes delicious if you do that.
Calvin, this is a bit of a cliched question to ask a gay person, but I guess you weren't sure at that age. I guess you were confused. But
right.
Were you like in sex ed class and they're like, oh yeah, the penis goes in the vagina, and you're like going, nah, that's not for me? Or was it all like you didn't know what was going on? And...
Well, I don't think any straight people are there like, oh, nice, yeah, I want to do that. You're looking at this like horrible Lovecraftian human anatomy diagram of the penis.
I'm not necessarily saying turned on by it or anything, but I think when you're 13, anything will trigger it. But I mean,
I think I looked at that and I was like, ugh. I think I was a bit like, really? I've got to do that, and there might be blood coming out of it depending on what time of month it is. Oh, I don't know about all this. I think I just wanted. I think I was kind of like, can't I just do it? Put it in the boobs. Do that. That's kind of my attitude when I was that age.
And still is now.
Oh yeah, if they're big enough.
I remember we did have a sexual health nurse come in to sort of like talk to us about it. It wasn't sex education necessarily, but this was the if you have sex with anything, you get AIDS sort of talk. And one of the boys did sort of say, oh, what about bum sex? And her response to that was, well, sex isn't really intended for that area. So spent the rest
but
of
was
my
she
life
saying that
proving
in
her
a
wrong.
sense of, and that's why it can do more damage and you're more easily infected because there's sort of
No, she just sort
walls
of
and all
left it at, like, no, it's not for there, so don't do it.
Well, that's bizarre, because, I mean, you are more likely to pass on an infection with anal sex.
that. Also, it feels a lot better.
Depends what mood you're in. I mean, the problem is you are going to have a dick that smells of shit, probably. And in my certain, I mean, I don't know. Maybe men have it down, but certainly when you're dealing with women who don't do that every day, it's I don't know.
Well, they either need to douche or get more fibre in the diet, one or the other.
I'll just wash
Can you
afterwards.
douche your ass?
Yeah, of course you can.
Oh, I don't know. Oh, that's.
No, it's all right.
I saw. I was watching a documentary passively that was on TV in the background last night, and the guy in it had an incredibly hairy ass, and I just thought, like, oh god, I hope mine doesn't look like that.
Can you not tell?
Well, I can't see what my ass looks like.
In the mirror.
Oh yeah, I don't think I'm that hairy on my ass.
Mm-hmm. How much would someone need to donate to the Patreon page to get a picture of your penis?
They need to go to my OnlyFans account for that. But yeah, speaking of that, oh, ding dong.
Oh, hello.
Hello, lads.
Oh, speaking of massive cocks.
Hey, none of that. I'll have you know, I've been
I mean, what?
I've been shagging lashes since before when you were just a little spermatozoa.
That's true, actually. I mean, that is.
Spermatozoa.
In fact, you're probably already too old to get it up by the time we were born.
Yeah, I mean, probably. I'm just here with a couple of new Patreons to rattle off. We're not done this in a while. They've been waiting a while, these guys. They I think you keep forgetting to have me on, guys.
Yeah, we those flights from the Caribbean aren't cheap, are they?
We got a Mandy Carter.
A what?
A woman.
A woman. Mandy Carter.
Mandy Carter.
That's maybe it's like Mandy Patinkin. Maybe it's a man.
Hey, the clues in the name, Mandy Carter.
Yeah, it's probably not a woman. Seems unlikely.
And we've also got a Hunter Jameson. Hunter Jameson.
Hunter Jameson.
I mean, that could be a lady, a lassie, or a man as well.
Sounds American.
Hunter. Who's a hunter? I mean, Hunter S. Thompson's a man, isn't he? As Hunter Jameson. Anyway, thanks both you lads. That's greatly appreciated. Keeping the lights on.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I'm hoping you both had your share voting for this episode, and you've enjoyed what the lads have been spouting about cocks and sperm and all that stuff.
Can I ask you a question, Japanese Bond?
Oh, yes.
How old were you when you lost your virginity?
Well, I mean, I was quite an old man before I was created, you know. I don't know how old Sean Connery was when he first put on the wig and everything.
You were created pretty much on the wedding day, though, wasn't it? That's 2 days before or something?
Yeah,
or were you already
so,
pretending to be married at that point? I can't remember.
Well, it depends, lads.
It was a fake wedding, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it depends if I count as about 3 days old then, or if you're counting all the age leading up to it. Yeah. All right, well, I was 3 days old, 0 years old, lad.
What a stud.
Start young.
At what point did you separate from the real Sean Connery and exist as something beyond the natural world?
I mean, it was shortly afterwards, and it was a very disturbing sequence of events. It was like something out of John Carpenter's The Thing, where we just kind of split off, screaming in agony. And I took the kimono, and I went, well, I guess that makes me the Japanese one. And he put on a pair of trousers and ate a bit of shortbread and left.
Oh.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you.
Have you got any advice for our listeners? A lot of our listeners are young men, not very good with women. Perhaps you could lend them some advice as your studly muffins.
Oh yes, only with an open hand.
Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome.
Oh dear.
He's not got old quite yet, has he? He's still
got
a bit of
life in the old dog yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's turned out sexually charged as hoped. This episode, I think.
You know what though? Because on our previous episodes, it's always been about what's Saul been up to in his sexual escapades because he was single. But you've been with someone for the last year, so I guess it's all died off.
Has it been that long?
Not a year. No.
Oh.
Most of it though. Most of the year. And Calvin's is like
about 6
domestic
months. I
little
think.
couple, and it's disgusting.
So you're really the only one, Alan.
Well, you've been up to all sorts of weird shit, Alan, haven't you? I mean, there's still plenty you guys, haven't dug into from before this. But yeah, I mean, Alan, what have you been up to?
Yeah, you've been up
Some
to
eyes
some
wide
really
shut
fucked up stuff.
How dare you? Well, I've been experimenting with certain things.
Is it some kind of policy that you can't discuss those things on air?
His mum does listen.
My mum listens.
Oh shit, she does actually, yeah. Oh, but she doesn't like these episodes. She just
She really takes
She
issue
wouldn't
with
listen to these episodes. Yeah.
No.
Have you ever had sex in public, like in front of people?
Not in front of people.
Yeah, or maybe just in public, but like avoiding people.
Well,
I guess that's the.
I've had sex where someone was watching, but it was like.
Yeah, sorry about that. I just
the woman.
I couldn't hear anything.
But I mean, I don't think the woman's like husband counts, does it? That's not what you're talking about.
Oh yeah. I don't know. Yeah, maybe if that's basically it. I suppose.
All right, well, I've done that. I've never done it with just like a public audience. Come and check this out.
Well, that's one of the things I've done this year.
Go on then.
Anecdote.
Well, basically, I went to an orgy, and like me and the girl I went with, we kind of decided beforehand that we weren't, because neither of us had done it before. So we thought we won't like join in with other people. We'll just sort of do our own thing, but it's kind of a sex party thing. Yeah. So basically, we ended up having sex, but in front of loads of people, and it was actually very. I quite enjoyed that element of it because it was like other people watching. I'm like, I was doing a good job, and she was giving a lot of response. So it was like showing off.
Yeah, I get that.
So it wasn't really a sexual
weird, isn't it?
thrill
It's really,
of being watched. It was just like, yeah, I can do this. Look at what I'm doing. Yeah, it's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I completely get that. That's exactly what I got out of the situations I was in with like that person's boyfriend, and it was kind of like I was showing him up a bit, and it was just like, yeah, I think I'm doing this better than you do it, so that's fun. She seems to be more into me than you. I mean, maybe that's just because the spark's gone from your relationship to the point that you're bringing in third parties to try and recapture something. But
see, that's my problem. I get to that point in relationships about 3 months in. The spark has just gone. Yeah.
What's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you during sex? Or not embarrassing, but like the most awkward thing that's happened.
You knocking on the door when I'm like right in the middle of it, and then not going away, not just taking the hint.
Well, I probably wanted to borrow that DVD or something.
I think you actually did.
Calvin, I need your 3D glasses that you got with Coraline.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then eventually, I think the penny did drop, because I think at first it was just sort of genuine ignorance. You were just sort of like, I know you're in there. and then sort of like, could you give me 10 minutes? And then you just sort of like laughed and was like, and then went away. But then had a look on your face when it was hard making eye contact with you the next time.
Yeah.
I was at a sex party, a different one actually, and a girl threw up in the corner.
Oh no! As a result of the sex, or
well, she'd been drinking
Nerves,
because there was people.
pills.
It was like there's like a couple of hours before any sex starts. There's a show, people are drinking, and just tanked a bottle of wine, and so it was like kind of all liquid, but she just drank too much, and then maybe she's being shook about or something. That's off-putting though when you're trying to have sex. Plus, the trouble with being in an orgy is like the other people. There's some like wanker like shouting because they're drunk and someone throwing up in the corner.
God!
You really need to pick the people carefully. You just let strangers in. It's no good. Alcohol ruins everything. What about you, Sol?
I remember once when we were doing it, and like when I put it in, she went, "Oh my!" And then we both like immediately registered it as a George Takei voice, like which it obviously was unintentionally, and started laughing, and it sort of killed the mood. But
I had that once with a guy who I was going down on his bum, and then as I started that, I was just sort of getting going, and then I just heard him say, "I've never experienced this before," and then that was just like,
I've never seen anything like it.
oh dear,
quite good to be able to bring someone a new experience, though, isn't it?
It just killed it, though. It was just like, I don't know if you're saying this as like, isn't it sexy? You're the first person to do this. But it's like, no.
So sex, hey? It's not as easy as it looks sometimes. You think it is as easy as it looks?
I don't know, what, the basics? Yeah, just stick it in there.
Pull it out at the end.
Even that though, sometimes you end up like in a weird angle, or I don't know.
Well, let's put it this way: we have a lot of young male listeners who are probably not as experienced as sort of seasoned swordsmen as ourselves. What's the sort of the best piece of advice you would give to the younger generation?
I think one of the Q&A questions we got sent in for our Q&A Diminisodes was along these lines, like, give us some sexual advice.
Oh, really?
I don't think it's been read out. I mean, I think it was a joke, but it's not been read out yet. I'm going to find the Diminisode question now. We're going to answer it as like a preview for our Q&A Diminisodes. Patreon.com.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Returns. We'll go out on a bonus question.
Well, yeah, I'd be curious to know how this is phrased. I suppose be kind is a good general one.
That's the most pathetic thing. So sexual advice.
I mean, that's
you can't be kind in sex.
Well, that's a similar ballpark to my advice, which I'm going to be disappointingly sincere with this as well, but I will say I find there's no way to say this sincerely that isn't absolutely hilarious for multiple reasons, but I think the best way to approach cunnilingus is... I found the question! To be continued. It's actually addressed directly to me, but you can both answer as well.
Oh, okay. Oh, never mind then.
I've begun seeing a rather ravishing lady, but I'm frightfully inexperienced as a young man, so I'm hoping you can pass along any top sex tips to aid me in this journey.
Did you
seem to be quite the knowledgeable chap in this domain. No, this was sent in to us from Chris Marshall via Patreon. I do think there was a degree of irony about what he was doing. Okay, well, my cringily sincere answer is treat cunnilingus. You have to think of it as though you're a safe cracker, right? You need to be listening to the body and like really paying attention. So each little movement's gonna have like a knock-on effect. Basically, you just need to pay attention to like if they're into it or not. But you'd be amazed at how many people don't do that from talking to women, because I never used to think I was anything remarkable until my recent becoming single a couple of years back, and then every woman was like mind blown by the that, and it was sort of like, well, what? And it was like, yeah, but most guys treat it like a dog eating peanut butter or something, and you're actually sort of like trying to get in there and touch the bits that like it, the amount that they like. So yeah, think of it like safe cracking. You're listening for reaction and responding accordingly.
I would agree with that, definitely with women anyway. If you get good at oral sex, because it'll get you a long way.
Yeah, because if you're like Alan and you don't want to do anything, you can just do that and be like, right, done. I'm gonna have a wank now.
But yeah, everyone's different. You have to kind of learn what. Some people like it really hard, some like it really soft, and it's like you have to sort of.
That's exactly it. Yeah,
as you see it.
That's what I mean. You've got to work accordingly, and that's it. Each person becomes like a puzzle to solve. So it's fun.
I think my best general advice would be take charge of the situation. And be careful. You don't be a dick about it.
I was going to say the views of Alan are not necessarily reflective of Diminishing Returns.
But that doesn't mean, force anyone into anything. And obviously, if it's the first time you're with someone, you do have to be careful and like figure out what's okay and what isn't. But once you're into it, like have the confidence, and that'll take you a long way, I think.
But then, at the same time, it is good to be sure that they actually want you to. So.
I suppose to sort of sum up much of today's episode, obviously real life sex isn't like porn, so to people relatively inexperienced, they might think that it is like that, and it isn't.
That's a good point, actually. I think.
Well, no. I mean, it can be like that, but what you never think about when you're watching porn is the smell. And that's something you really ought to factor in, because it can go either way. It can actually be quite off-putting, even if the act itself would appear very nice on camera. So, always be aware that there will be a smell.
You raise a good point there, Calvin, though. I think this generation below us, certainly just below me, brought up with the internet and the access to pornography that brings. I think you see pornography sooner and a lot more of it, and you need to know pornography is generally very aggressive to women.
I cannot believe it. It's got worse. Like, I mean, maybe it's just not what I think this is part of why I don't just go on like Pornhub main page and click at like the top 10 most popular things now, because when you do that, you get like videos of a woman's face being shoved in a toilet and flushed while she's getting fucked. It's like, what? That's not what I want to watch. I want to watch two people like cheating on each other and all the emotional pain. I want the pain to be emotional. I'm not interested in all this physical abuse that's commonplace nowadays. And I think of the stuff I watch as being, quite far down a dark rabbit hole of its own. But, I'm a seasoned, experienced porn viewer, and I feel like I can make an informed decision about.
That's it. I do like to watch that sort of stuff, but I do appreciate that it's not reality.
I mean, I'm not in the right mood. I could, but it's certainly not what I want to just pop up when you're not looking for it. That's the other thing. You'll just click on the main. You'll like search for something normal, like woman. Corset. I don't know what's a normal search term. You'll search for something completely innocent like that, and then you'll be watching it, and then it'll be like, oh, I really don't think we should be doing this, brother. Oh, don't worry about it, sister. Mum and dad won't be home for it. It's like, what? Why is it incest? And if it's incest porn, quote unquote incest porn, why isn't that flagged up in the title or something? Like, that shouldn't just be. But that the weird niche shit has become the mainstream, and that's the worrying thing that we're leading towards. And apparently there's a huge spike in young men who are having erectile dysfunction issues because they can't find adequate stimulation in real life. And
really?
I think Yeah,
That's
it's a
terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say to any young people out there, sex is not like it is in porn, and not just in the sense of, if you meet a woman, she won't actually want to do those things or enjoy them if you want to do them to her, unless you meet a very particular type of woman. But also, doing them does not give you the same feeling as you think it will, because it's usually quite impractical and not as pleasant as it looks.
Yeah. Yeah, the angles are usually really awkward and about getting a good shot, and in reality you want to just kind of be like awkwardly flopping on top of each other because that's what feels nicer. But
Yep, all that. Like, if you don't feel like making a noise, don't feel like you have to make a noise, like, I feel like that's something that really...
Oh my god, that's a tip.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a tip for all the women, really. But,
yeah, both.
From my point of view, but like, one of the most off-putting things is like blatantly put on sex noises.
Yeah.
Real noises are great
God,
because it does give you validation that you're doing something right.
Yeah.
But fake noises are no good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but you just think that, that's what sex is, because that's just porn. Like, that's just what they do because they have to. Because I suppose just watching two people silently going at it isn't as engaging, perhaps.
And be careful with the dirty talk on that front, because you can fill silence with dirty talk, but just like phrases are quite specific, and what does it for one person might be really hilarious to another person and quite off-putting. So just don't. I would say don't repeat the same phrases over and over again. That's probably your best bet. Like, maybe try something, see if it lands, see if you get a response. Don't just fall back on the like. I mean, some of the stuff people come out with, Jesus Christ! Like, I'm gonna milk those balls. That's not a turn on. Having someone say that.
Is this stuff you've seen in porn or someone said to you in real life?
No, this is stuff I've encountered in my day-to-day.
Really? No one's ever said that to me. What about this, right, as sort of a slight antidote to all the sex stuff? What's advice to younger people? What's the secret to a healthier relationship?
Be kind.
Oh, fuck off with you, be kind.
I don't know. It's
Take
completely...
charge. That's my.
It is
money.
It is
lots of money.
But money does actually help. Like, I know that, but not money necessarily, but financial stability. Money is the biggest cause of arguments amongst couples, and it's easy to see why. Rent payments, bills, all that kind of stuff. And
what if there is large inequity between the two partners, financially speaking? Is that a problem?
I think that,
no, I just think you need to come to a
think that's
mutual
more of an issue
understanding and have the balls really to talk about it openly, rather than just be very British about it. Oh, I'm not talking about that.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that about it. Yeah, that would be my advice. Just be complete. Talk about things. Don't stew on things. If something's bothered you, mention it. And if that person is not able to talk to you about it, it's probably not going to be a healthy relationship.
Because that's that's the sort of thing that will fester away, and then it will manifest in them like cheating on you or stabbing you in your sleep or poisoning you with arsenic over the course of 2 years.
These are some of my favourite episodes for us to record. I think it's nice. We learn a lot about each other. We have some laughs.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening, and thank you to our Patreon supporters who voted for this film. If you'd like to support the show and get extra content for just $1 a month, go to patreon.com/dimreturns. Next week, we will be back on Bond, and it's going to be a very special episode as we step into the Timothy Dalton era. Surely he can't be worse than a 60-year-old Roger Moore. Tune in next week. Bye!